Okay, picture this. An army of 60,000 soldiers, and leading them, 13 massive war elephants, each one weighing 6 tons, marching to destroy the most sacred site in all of Arabia. But they were stopped, not by another army, but by a miracle from the sky. We're going to dive into this absolutely incredible story, which comes straight from the Quranic chapter, Surah Al-Fil.
So that was the furious vow of Abraha, the powerful ruler of Yemen. His words set off a chain of events that would become the stuff of legend, pitting the arrogance of a king against the power of faith. And that one threat? That's the spark that kicks off this entire story.
So who was this man, and what drove him to such an extreme, aggressive act? Well, it all boils down to one thing: a king's burning jealousy.
Abraha was a seriously intimidating figure. Get this, he stood 7 feet tall, his face a map of old war wounds. As the viceroy for the Abyssinian emperor, his job was to control the rich trade routes of southern Arabia, and he ruled with an iron fist, completely fueled by ambition.
And the source of all this rage? He had built this magnificent cathedral in his capital, Al-Calais, just dripping with gold and polished marble. He was hoping it would become the new center of pilgrimage. But it sat empty. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away in the barren valley of Mecca, you've got this simple, unadorned cube, the Kaaba, drawing countless pilgrims and traders. Basically, his huge glory project was a total failure, and he blamed the Kaaba for it.
So, fueled by this jealousy, Abraha decided that if he couldn't attract the pilgrims, he would just destroy their destination. And to make his threat a reality, he gathered a force that was, well, truly terrifying.
First up, the men, a vast sea of 60,000 soldiers. Now, we're not talking about some small raiding party here. This was a full-scale invasion force, made up of fearsome Abyssinian warriors, swift Arab horsemen, and deadly Yemeni archers.
But the infantry wasn't even the main event. Abraha's real weapon, his shock troops, were 13 massive war elephants, beasts trained for one purpose and one purpose only: total and utter destruction.
Just think about that for a second. Each elephant was a 6-ton mountain of muscle and bone, capable of shattering fortifications and crushing soldiers underfoot. They were living, breathing siege engines.
And leading this squadron of titans was Mahmud. He was a special gift from the emperor himself, a legendarily powerful beast, said to be able to pulverize boulders with just a single charge. He was the unstoppable spearhead of a supposedly unstoppable army.
So as news of this horrifying army reached Mecca, panic just gripped the city. It really seemed like nothing could stand in Abraha's way. But as the people fled, one man walked toward the danger.
You can just imagine the scene, right? The markets emptied out, the streets fell completely silent. The people of the Quraysh tribe, who were the guardians of the Kaaba, they saw this force coming and believed their home was doomed. They grabbed their families and fled for the safety of the mountains.
But not everyone ran. Abdul Muttalib, the 82-year-old chief of the tribe, a man of immense dignity and respect, did the unthinkable. While his own people were fleeing for their lives, he walked alone, straight into the camp of the invading army to face Abraha.
When they met, Abraha was, kind of amused. He asked why this old man wasn't begging for the Kaaba's safety, but was instead asking for his stolen camels back. And Abdul Muttalib's reply, wow, it has echoed through history. I am the owner of my camels, the Kaaba has its Lord, and he will protect it. It was this breathtaking moment, a lone man's profound faith pitted directly against the might of an entire empire.
So, Abdul Muttalib returned to his people, his faith completely unshaken. The next morning, Abraha gave the order to advance. The final assault on Mecca was about to begin, but it would unfold in a way that absolutely no one could have ever imagined.
Just as the army began its final push, the strangest thing happened. Mahmud, the colossal lead elephant, the very symbol of Abraha's might, just stopped dead in his tracks. He knelt towards the ground and refused to take another step toward the Kaaba. Soldiers beat him, they prodded him, but this great beast wouldn't move.
And then the soldiers saw it. A dark cloud on the horizon, coming in from the sea. It wasn't a storm cloud. It was a massive flock of birds called Ababel, and each bird carried 3 tiny pebbles of baked clay. As they flew over the army, they let the stones go. The result was catastrophic and immediate. The stones, even though they were tiny, struck with supernatural force. They pierced right through armor, helmets, and flesh. The elephants were the first to fall. Soldiers screamed as their skin literally began to melt away. Within hours, the entire 60,000-strong army was utterly destroyed, their bodies left in the valley like, and this is how the Quran describes it, chewed up straw.
The destruction was absolute. So how was this incredible event remembered? And what was its lasting legacy?
Well, Abraha himself was struck by a stone. He somehow managed to flee back to Yemen, but his body disintegrated along the way, and he died soon after. The Quraysh came back down from the mountains to find their city and the Kaaba perfectly safe. The year 570 CE was so momentous that it became known in Arab history as the Year of the Elephant, which also happens to be the very same year the Prophet Muhammad was born in Mecca.
This event was immortalized in the Quran, in the short but incredibly powerful chapter called Al-Fil, which means the elephant. These verses serve as a permanent reminder of the story, telling how God sent the birds to strike the army and leave them utterly decimated.
And that brings us to our final thought. The story of the Army of the Elephants is way more than just a historical account. It's a profound lesson. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. What does this event, where a king's entire military might was undone by a flock of birds, teach us about the true nature of power and the resilience of faith?